All right. Hey there, everyone. I'm Rye Myers, your Broadway and Entertainment BFF, and you're watching another episode of my live digital talk show series, Live with Rye. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me. I always appreciate it. Hey, listen, if you're joining me on YouTube, do me a huge favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a live episode and you can see anytime I go live, post new content, new videos. I've posted some new things recently that you can check out as well. So hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Or if you're joining us on Facebook, give me a heart so I know that you're watching. Listen, I love being able to bring the show to you every week with some of the best people in the entertainment and Broadway world, giving you all sorts of good advice and talking with them. But I can't do it without your help. And as you know, creating something like this takes a lot of time and effort. So if you are so inclined, I'd love if you'd consider helping to support the network. You can scan this fancy QR code, which is my Venmo, or you'll also see my Venmo handle scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. And donate if you'd like. Whatever you're able to give would mean the world to me. And again, you'll see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Or head to ridethenewsguy.com/donate, and you can donate. It's a minimum of $5 to donate on the website, and shoot me some support. I would love it. And, I want to keep bringing this to you week after week, including my live in-person show, Live with Ryan and Friends, every Thursday. So make sure you are staying tuned and donate if you can. And with that, help me welcome my very special guest, someone who I've been dying to have on the show for quite some time, and I'm thrilled it worked out to have him this time around. And I think he is somebody that you all are going to benefit from. Actually, I know you all will benefit from. He has changed my life in so many ways and continues to. So please help me welcome the incredible Bret Shuford.
Hey, Bret. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. What a sweet introduction. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. Well, it's so true. So, I mean, it's true.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's get started. Tell me a little bit how you got started as now the creative life coach. Used to be the Broadway life coach, but it's rebranded.
Yeah. I've been working on some rebranding here. Yeah. So I've been working and living in New York City for 22 years. And when I guess it was my fourth Broadway show was The Little Mermaid on Broadway. And I was backstage dressed as a stingray. And I was talking to my friend Merwin, who was dressed as a blowfish. And we were doing a Saturday matinee. I just was like kind of not really in the mood, just sometimes work feels like work. And it was our seventh show or sixth show of the week. And I just said to him, is this really where you thought your career would be? Kind of, just like 26 and like feeling like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing Sondheim or whatever. I was being kind of, entitled or something. And he looked at me and he said, this isn't a career, it's a job. And when he said that to me, it really hit me the way that this guy had, I think at this point had 18 Broadway shows on his resume. And I was like, he really just shows up because this is what he loves to do, not because he's trying to accomplish some sort of next level. And I kept thinking, wow, if I wanted to have a job, I could work at Starbucks. I love coffee. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I working on Broadway? What if I'm going to choose to do this? I want to be wholehearted about it and be really intentional about it. And I think that I realized in that process, there were so many of us in the industry who found ourselves backstage, on stage, doing this thing that we started doing young, had a real dream about it, but hadn't really thought about how to make that function as a business and as a job. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn more about the psychology around this. And then I got certified as a life coach, and I branded myself the Broadway life coach. But as the last 2 years have really shifted things, especially in the theater industry, but since the pandemic, I've realized in working with a lot of people one-on-one that Broadway really can be a trigger word for people, because there's people who pursued it who maybe never accomplished it. And so they have a resentment or a bitterness about it. But then there's people who've worked on Broadway who have some trauma around it, which we've all been hearing about over the last couple of years. And then I have people who come to me who Broadway's not even on their radar. Like, that's just not even what they want. Like, they just want to make a full-time living doing what they love. And I was like, I feel like this is limiting who I serve and And so I have decided to move away from being the Broadway life coach, and I'm now the creative life coach, and I'm serving a wider audience in doing that.
You certainly are. And as full disclosure, you are serving a wide audience. One of that audience being yours truly, myself, somebody who is Broadway adjacent and loves Broadway, but is not on Broadway himself and has no plans to be.
Yeah.
But yes, full disclosure. And you, so I love that the name of the creative life coach, and I think it's so empowering that you realized that you sort of wanted to do more and took that step to create that and realize that you were able to sort of harness that.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good.
What did being on Broadway teach you about being a creative and sort of becoming your own entity?
Broadway is such a place, really perfectly bridges that idea of capitalism and art. And when, I've loved theater. I started doing theater when I was 6. I just knew what I wanted to do. But to me, I always thought Broadway was the only way I was going to make a full-time living doing it. And it's true. In theater, it's the most money you'll make.
Yeah.
But I realized that in being on Broadway, how entrepreneurial Broadway is, right? Broadway, unlike corporations, entertainment corporations like Disney or Netflix, or and each show on Broadway is kind of its own corporate entity. And so those producers are independent, the actors are all these independent contractors through the unions. And I was like, whoa, there's something here around learning about how to be an independent artist. And what if I could figure out a way to make Broadway almost like make it my day job, and then I could do these things outside of it that I love, like create videos or do content creation or coach people, or and that's what I really got curious about, was like, I love performing, but what if that actually is my job? And then my career is helping people and serving people. And I don't think I could have figured that out if I hadn't have gotten to that level as an actor. So Broadway, I think, is really the ultimate lesson in understanding how art and commerce operate together.
Mhm.
Sometimes great and sometimes not great. Sometimes it's, but because it's capitalism, there's an audience for some things, and sometimes it's just the risk you take. You have to, so that's what I think is really fascinating about that industry and that community.
No, I agree. I think that's wonderful. On the topic of Broadway, you've done so many productions on Broadway. What has been your favorite Broadway production you were a part of?
I could have done Beauty and the Beast on Broadway for 20 years. I loved doing that show so much.
That's
And
amazing.
there was a guy who was in that show from opening to closing, Bill Nabel.
Wow.
And so that opened, what, in like 89? And then I think it closed in
90 or 90.
2000.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, 91, right? Is that what it was?
I think so.
And then it closed in 2008.
Oh my
And
God.
he was there the whole time. And I was like, I remember when I joined, I was like, oh God, this guy's been here this whole time. And after doing the show, I was like, I get it now. Like, I would have done that show forever. It was so fun. The music was so good.
Oh,
It was just such a storybook of a show,
yeah. I hope it comes back as a revival soon. I mean, I've seen the tours that they've done of it. Of course, it doesn't, equate to the Broadway show. I was not seeing Broadway at that time, but I remember that the Beauty and the Beast was actually, I used to collect, and I still sometimes do, fan mail, and I used to do the signed programs from the Broadway shows when I was in middle school. It was a hobby I took up of sending. Middle school was a really tough time for me, and one of the releases would be writing to these Broadway shows and asking for, signed playbills and sometimes signed photos from the lead, and actually Beauty and the Beast, the 2007 cast, right around the time of them closing, was one of the first playbill I ever got.
I wonder if I'm in it.
You might be. I think it was Annalise Vanderpool was the bell.
Because I left right at the end, like a few months before they closed, because Little Mermaid,
Oh,
we went to do our out of town. So I
oh,
left right before Beauty closed, but I was doing it. Well, I did 2006. I think 2007 was when I
wow.
left. So
Well,
there's a chance. If you go check and see,
well,
there's a
when
chance.
when I go back home, maybe for the holidays for Jersey, and I look at my collection of that I
Yeah,
have,
let me know.
I'll have to take a look. That's really cool. I hope they do a revival of that because it's a beautiful
Well, I
show.
know they're doing that one in London or in the UK right now, so I have a feeling it might be on its way.
Poppins. They're doing Mary Poppins in the UK, which is exciting. You know,
Mhm.
they do one with Beauty and the Beast. So, for the creatives who are stuck in their mind and are at a roadblock, how can they break out of that and achieve their potential? I mean, I know this is something I've had conversations, well, obviously with you about, but other creatives I've had on the show and friends in general. How do you break out of that feeling of being stuck? Or, yes, I want to be a performer or I want to be a director, but I'm nervous because I don't want to leave my day job and possibly have no money and have to struggle, or I want to do this but I'm stuck in this sort of mind block and can't move forward.
Well, I mean, it's a big question, and for most creatives, if you're afraid of money, and that's a very real thing, I'll address that first. Your security is very important. Having a roof over your head. I always say to actor friends, like, you can't win a Tony if you can't eat. So having food on the table and a roof over your head is important, and it's important to also understand that in order to get to a place where you can support yourself doing what you love full time, you're going to have to find a way to support yourself in doing those adventures, because any business that you try, no matter if you're an MBA guy or whatever, it doesn't profit to start. It takes time for a business to grow in order to start profiting. So you have to you have to have the strength and the energy and the security to be able to invest your creative time and energy into making it happen. And so, that's always one of the first things I deal with when working with clients is, what is your security? What is your mindset around income, and understanding that if you're doing a day job, it is literally your income to support you doing these other things. So it's important that you don't judge that you're doing it or see it as a hindrance, and see it as the support that it is. So that's number one. And then number two, a lot of people who feel stuck creatively, depending on what their venture is, I usually start by looking at like how much I basically say, as a successful artist, you need to be able to balance two things. You need to be able to balance your credibility and your vulnerability. And quite often, if you're feeling stuck, it's because you're not balancing those two things. And what I mean by that is, and this is true for social media, this is true for anyone who wants to build a creative brand. What I mean by that is, there are people who just lead with their talent. They just lead with their skill. So they show up at auditions or meetings, and they just talk about their resume. They just talk about their credits and their experiences and the things that they've accomplished. And those people tend to get frustrated because they don't understand, well, I'm talented. There's people who are less talented than me doing, greater things, and I don't know what it takes for me to do that. And that's because they're not balancing what I call vulnerability, which is that we also know people who lean way too much into the vulnerability. And those are the people who don't share their skill sets, don't share their talents, but only talk about their personal lives, their struggles, their
Right.
so what's important is that you find a way to balance both of those things. So you want to be able to not only share what you do, but also who you are, because you are more than what you do. And there's a lot of talented people in the world, but they aren't you. So if you're not allowing people to see who you are as a person, and so sometimes that, if you're feeling stuck, it's about really looking at yourself and embracing your stories, your history. I always say, like, your mess is your message. And, looking at some of the stuff, like for me, I know when I used to hate being from Texas. I did not want anyone to know I was from Texas when I moved to New York. I
Mhm.
did everything I could to get rid of my accent. But I remember there was a moment where I was backstage. I think it was during Little Mermaid, and I was like, I'm from Texas. I like what's wrong with that? I miss country music. I started wearing my cowboy boots around New York City,
Amazing.
and I started feeling like really like in my body and like myself. And I had this resentment for so long. But when I started to embrace, yeah, I'm from Texas, like whatever. Then I produced a concert at 54 Below called Broadway Does Country, and I did it for like 5 years annually. And then that got bought by somebody who wants to produce it in a symphony. And it was all because I started to embrace who I was. And I think that a lot of times we will fall into the trap of one of those two things. So it's super important that you allow yourself to not just rely on your credibility or your vulnerability, that you find a way to connect with people with both.
I think that is so true and so important. And I mean, for those who might not know, I mean, how does one sort of try their best to connect? I mean, if some with whether it's their social media following or people that are online, if they don't think that they have something that can connect them, they might say like, well, like I'm boring. Like, what am I going to connect with? Or they're like, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, I think if you think you're boring, right, you're forgetting that human beings are fascinating. Like the most you want to be relatable,
Right.
right? And so people being able to see who you are as a human, uh, you know, is what makes them connect with you.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to build trust with people in order to get them to support you or buy your product or whatever it is, you build trust over time. You build trust by really speaking to your audience. And so I always, as you know, start with like, who is your audience? Like, who do you really want to serve? And getting really specific about it. A lot of times people are like, 25 to 60-year olds. Like, no, 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 no. Like, pick a person, like, manifest a person, create a person, or think of an ideal person that you've had in the past. And your message can really be that specific to that person. It makes it so much easier to show up,
Yeah.
because what's super important is that when you start, I always say, even before that, it starts by making a decision. Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? What kind of impact do you want to make in the world? And if you decide that you want to make that kind of impact, then you have to decide to make a commitment, no matter what level of success you think you're supposed to be accomplishing, because it takes time. Building trust and building relationships take time, especially when they're genuine, organic, and authentic. There's a lot of hacks and a lot of ways to like grow your following in a really fast way and spend a lot of money and all that stuff, but it's not necessarily going to be authentic and organic. And it's so important to me that who I am as a person is directly integrated with who you see online.
Right.
So I think that if that's not important to you, if you just want to just make fast money and, then, there's ways to do that through, look at some sales people and do that. But I think what I always wanted in the world was someone who saw me, who, I needed to feel validated. And so that's what I try to do for my audience. So it starts with that decision. It starts with knowing who your audience is. And then it starts with being able to be vulnerable, tell your story. Like I said, your mess is your message.
That is so great. Your mess is your message. Wow. That's powerful. That is really powerful. What is one thing you want creatives and artists to know about themselves?
Hmm. One thing that I want creatives and artists to know about themselves.
Yeah, or creatives in general. I mean, I've used, and I guess they're all intertwined, but
Yeah. Um, I guess it's just that, no matter I think the one thing I wish more people accepted is that success as a creative, as an artist, requires a willingness to fail. It requires a certain level of risk. So, I always say, be willing to fail, be willing to try, be willing to fail publicly. It might scare you, but I promise you it won't hurt you. And if anything, I wrote a blog post about this once, but there are no mistakes. We just learn.
Yeah.
And so if you don't make mistakes, if you don't do it wrong, you'll never get it right.
Wow. I like that. Yeah, you are so right. You have to make mistakes to get where you are and figure it out. It's the only way you
Yeah.
learn. What services do you offer through your company, Broadway Life Entertainment? I mean, I know you're the creative life coach, but what are some services that people could get from you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I am actually right now, if anyone's interested, you can download a free map that I call the Imposter to Influencer map. If you just go to imposter-to-influencer-map.com, it's a great, fun guide to help you figure out your personal brand online. So that's a great place to start if anyone's interested. And then
Say the
I
website
offer
was imposter to influencer.
imposter-to-influencer-map.com. Um, and that is a really fun. I use the map of Disneyland as a guide to help you build your theme park, your virtual theme park, if you will. Um, and so that is a great place to start. And then I offer one-on-one coaching. And in January, I'm going to be launching my second cohort of my creative. I'm calling it the Creative Visibility course. So that's a 6-week course to help you build your marketing and creative brand.
Wow. So you offer quite a lot. I love that. I love that, and that's really powerful. You're making a difference and really, helping so many people. Part of what you do and offer, or I should say, offer. Part of what you do. You're one part of Broadway Husbands, the
Yeah.
popular Instagram channel and YouTube channel. How did Broadway Husbands come about? I know the second half, Stephen, is not present, but how did it come about for the both of you?
I was making YouTube videos during Paramour. It was doing Paramour on Broadway, and I was one of the series I did every month was I called it Broadway Husbands. It was me and Steven, and we would do silly challenges and then we would have guests on, like we had Carol Lindsay and her husband and different couples on, and we would
Amazing.
do different games. And I noticed that those videos always did better than any of my other content. So I was like, I wonder if I created a separate channel for this, and no one had the Instagram handle, no one had the YouTube handle. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And before I knew it, so that was 2018 when I started the Instagram, and now we have what, 65,000 followers, and it's just a fun way for us to create something together, create visibility for LGBTQ marriage, which is super important to us.
Yeah.
And of course, now grow our family, which is our newest announcement. We're going to have a baby in April. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Oh, that's really exciting. You must be so excited and
so excited.
oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy. And do you know, is it a boy or a girl?
Yeah, we do know. We're not saying, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. Good. Well,
Yeah.
both of you. That's great.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, you're welcome. So how important is social media presence for people in in the creative industry? I know social media can be both a blessing and a beast, but how important, if you want to be creative and successful, is it to be on social media, even if it's just one platform at a time that you're focused on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on your goals, right? I don't think you have to be on social media to be successful. I don't. And I tell people that, like, listen, if you don't like it, don't do it, because it is a job. It is a full-time job in order to do it successful. But if you decide you're not going to do social media, then you need to make a decision of how you're going to build relationships, because while you don't need social media, it's the easiest and cheapest way to get your work seen, get your name out there, and build relationships with people. So if you're not going to use it, then you need to find another avenue to build relationships with people. And you need to make a decision. Again, decision. But it starts with deciding, okay, if I don't like social media, then what am I going to do to get in front of the people that I want to collaborate with and know?
Mhm.
And but I look at social media very differently than I think a lot of people look at it. I think a lot of people see social media as a marketing tool, or they see it as a responsibility, or they see it as this like thing they're supposed to do. And I see social media as an opportunity
Hmm.
to extend your creativity out in the world. That's all it is. Like if I can have an idea and just be willing to put it out there, there's plenty of ways to do that. And YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever I choose, I'm going to find a way to just put it out in the world and see how people respond. Not everybody's going to like it. I'm not making it for everybody. And so I think it's really important to understand that if you want to be a creative and you want to be known as a creative in the world, you have everything you need to make that happen if you just decide to do it and be willing to fail.
Love that. Words of preaching here, words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. I love it. If you could give your younger self 5 years ago advice for where you are now, what would it be?
5 years ago?
Yeah, let's say 5 years ago, or younger self, I guess in general. But I feel like 5 years ago, because everyone progresses. I guess every 5 years, there's
Yeah. I probably would tell myself 5 years ago, I probably would start by saying, why don't you call it the creative life coach instead of the Broadway life coach? Just do that. Uh, I would start there. Yeah, and then 5 years ago, I think that I would love to have told myself 5 years ago that I can be as successful as a coach and as an entrepreneur as I was as an actor. I just didn't believe it was possible.
Right.
And uh and I would just tell myself, "Hey, look, it is totally possible. Just you got to put your commitment in there and do the work."
I love that. I think, yeah,
Yeah,
that is great.
thanks.
Where can we learn more about you and keep up with you, follow you, all of that good stuff?
Well, everything is at Bret Shuford. So BretShuford.com. You can go to Instagram at Bret Shuford and TikTok, and of course YouTube, Bret Shuford, and yeah, and then of course Broadway Husbands.
Right.
If you haven't followed us on Instagram, wow, you made all the graphics for this. This is so
Yeah,
good.
I feel like I'm forgetting. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but you feel
Yeah,
like
that's great. So yeah, you can come follow me on all those channels. In November, I'm going to be debuting some new YouTube videos, so we're excited about that.
that's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching who might be interested, you can keep up with me by following me at Rye_Myers on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I'm also on Facebook at official Rye Myers. You see my social media handle also in my description name as well. And once again, if you were so inclined, please feel free to donate. Go to ridenewsguy.com/donate or scan this fancy QR code right here, which will take you to my Venmo, and just leave any donation amount you can. I love being able to do this and talk with people like Bret and other luminaries in this industry, but let's continue to support everyone and take this to the next level. And if you're interested in collaborating on a project or want to learn more about what I'm doing, you can also visit ryentertainment.com, my production company's website. Lots of exciting things happening and in the works. So head over there as well to see more. Bret, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and doing this. It was really wonderful, and I hope I got a lot out of it, a lot that I knew, but a lot that I learned that I didn't know, and I hope everyone watching got a lot out of it.
Thank you for having me. You're awesome, Rye.
Thank you, Bret.